Good morning, adventurers. My name is Ben, and welcome to a morning show where I sit around, drink some tea, and talk about D&D. Today, first up on the news docket, and really the only thing on the news docket that I have written down is the fact that we have an official release date for the Legend of Vox Machina cartoon if you are into Critical Role. That is going to be February 4th, 2022 on Amazon Prime. It is going to, the first two episodes are going to cover a mini arc that they would have done when they were about level 7, I believe. So before they started streaming, and then the rest of that first season is going to cover the Briarwood arc, which is the first major arc that you run into when watching the Vox Machina campaign. So if that is something that you are excited about or looking at, go mark your calendars because it's coming up. Somebody did the math, and I think as of posting this, so today, we are now past the point where you can watch one a day and have it end on February 4th, but you're still in like the mid hundred and teens days away. So you're still pretty much on that road if you want to go ahead and just dive in and do it. Otherwise, if you want a refresher, you can just watch the Briarwood arc, which is a lot more manageable because it's only like 10 episodes long. So, up to you. Let me know what you're going to be doing. I am excited about it. Knowing me, I am just going to watch the whole thing again because I have minimal self-control when it comes to my consumption of different content. Oh, well. That is everything in terms of news, really. There's not a whole lot going on. In terms of streams today, we have I wrote them down in Pacific time. I'm going to read them off in Pacific time instead of Eastern time, because that's how I wrote them down, because I wasn't thinking about it when I did it. We have 1:30 to 4 p.m. Eastern time. We have the Roll20 Candlekeep Mysteries on twitch.tv/DND, and then from 4 to 7 Pacific time, we have Into the Mist, which, again, twitch.tv/DND. So those are both of the official Wizard streams that are happening this week. I don't know of any other ones that are happening, but as ever, if you are not into that, but you still want to watch some D&D, you can always go on to Twitch, whatever you go on to, and just look it up and figure it out from there, because there is always somebody streaming a game somewhere, and you're going to run into some cool smaller streams by doing that. So I do encourage you to check those out whenever you get the chance to. But that is everything that I have for news and for streams today. First week we're going to do T&D. Wow, I'm a little bit all over the place. Because I also am realizing that I have a news thing that I didn't write down because I already talked about it a little bit. So we're going to do the news thing first, actually. Jumping back to news, if you didn't see the release as well as my video about it, they dropped some new Unearthed Arcana on Friday during the day. It has 6 new races. It is titled the Travelers of the Multiverse, I believe. Only 3 of those races are humanoid. They are pretty cool, and I definitely encourage you to check them out because they will be asking for feedback on them so that they can eventually potentially implement them into the game. That is it for news. That is it for streams. We go into T&D now. Wow, I'm a little bit all over the place. T&D. First off, I have this mug that is copyright 1982 and 1989, M&D Balloons Incorporated, that just says, "You're the greatest," in hearts sort of all around it, and it's got a bunch of fun colors on it. I got this mug from a group of good friends that I have that have been in town over the weekend. I'm actually going to see them later today to get ice cream before they get onto a plane and fly back home. They are 2/3 of my home game D&D party, they want to know what everybody wants to rate this mug. So definitely rate this mug in the comments because they are looking forward to that. The tea I have is, again, the licorice root, slippery elm bark, that sort of thing, because I have been talking a lot recently. So again, my throat is a little bit shot. Again, you can hear the burn a little bit in the back. I'm saying again because I'm pretty sure I did this exact same bit on Thursday of last week, I think. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on from T&D, we were getting into what we were actually talking about today, finally, which it's not a good day for me to be all over the place with talking about this, but we're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna get into it and go for it. I am talking today about clerics in the continued saga of talking about one of the core classes every single Monday until the end of this year, so that is when I'm gonna end this season of this show and then come back for the next whatever. But today is Cleric Day. Most people know that clerics are the healers of the D&D universe. They're the most oriented towards primary healing. But more than anything, they are divine emissaries. They are individuals chosen by their god to really sort of help push their power, push their influence in the world, which means that they get some pretty cool godly powers. The really fun thing about clerics is that there are so many different divine domains, which is where you really sort of get your customization of them, because the Cleric Core class is actually very straightforward. There are not a lot of complicated features, and really there's only like 2 or 3 of them, and they just sort of build on it themselves. So that's kind of nice, honestly. So you're going to hear me repeating a lot of the same stuff as I go through the level 1 to level 20 level up stuff that they get. So let's dive into that, shall we? First up, at first level, you get your spellcasting ability. Obviously, they are wisdom-based spellcasters, and they have an expansive prepared spell list, so they don't have to pick and learn spells, which is pretty nice. And you pick your divine domain at first level. It kind of makes sense. You can't really have a cleric without a god to follow, so you kind of got to pick your domain early along with your god. At second level, you get your channel divinity once per rest, as well as nope, it's just channel divinity. Wow, my notes make perfect sense, but I can't read them. Once per rest, you get something called channel divinity. That is a short or long rest. They recharge after either of those. You get a channel divinity option based on your subclass, as well as getting a channel divinity option based on the cleric class as a whole. The cleric class as a whole gives you turn undead, which allows you to present your holy symbol, and any undead within 30 feet of you have to make a wisdom saving throw against your spell saving DC, or be turned from you, which essentially means that they literally turn around and run away from you as much as possible. It can only dash away from you. It can't make any other actions. If it can't move, it has to take the dodge action. Like, it is just, it literally just sends them out away from you until they take damage or for a minute. At level 5, skipping forward, you pick up Destroy Undead up to CR 1/2. That is an extension, actually, of your Turn Undead Channel Divinity. Like I said, a lot of the stuff is going to just kind of build on itself, which is pretty nice. Destroy Undead. If you use your Turn Undead feature and the undead are CR 1/2 or lower, if they fail their wisdom save, they are instantly destroyed instead of being turned and having to run away. All of the higher level ones still make the save and have to run away if they fail it. But CR 1/2 or lower just die flat out. At level 6, you get to use a channel divinity twice per rest, which is nice. There's not a whole lot more to say about that. It is just what it is. At level 8, your Destroy Undead CR goes up to 1 from 1/2, so now CR 1 and lower undead, when they fail that save, they just die. At level 10, you get one of the more unique, honestly, in my opinion, one of the cooler features in the game from a core class. You get Divine Intervention, which allows you to, I believe, as an action, let me grab that real quick. As an action, we're going to say as an action, you can try to get some favor from your god. We'll phrase it like that. Yes, as an action. You can attempt to like pull favor from your god. So you roll a D100. Well, you roll a percentile dice. It's more fun if you roll a D100. And you are trying to roll below your cleric level. If you roll below your cleric level, your DM, based on what you are asking for, gives you some sort of assistance in that way. So if you are asking to find your way to something, they might like make the path in front of you glow, like the path all the way there, or they might give you a vision of how to get there or something like that. In my home game, when they were fighting a giant dragon, the cleric used divine intervention, asking her god to smite the dragon, like knock it out of the sky, and so a giant sword came falling out of the sky. Maybe it might have been an embalming hook. She's a great cleric. Came falling out of the sky and smashed the dragon back into the ground, dealing a ton of damage and knocking it prone for the next round, which means that everybody got, some good bonuses on it. Super cool effect. You can attempt to use it once per day, or if it is successful, you can't use it again for another week. At level 11, your Destroy Undead CR goes up to 2. So now, CR 2 and lower. Undead are destroyed when you use your turn undead. At level 14, your Destroy Undead CR goes up to 3. At level 17, your Destroy Undead CR goes up to 4. So you cap out there at CR4 and lower undead just being destroyed. At level 18, you can use your Channel Divinity 3 times per long rest. And at level 20, your Divine Intervention always works when you ask for it. No roll required. So you jump from having effectively a 1 in 5 shot at level 19 to just a guaranteed working of the thing, which is super cool and obviously very powerful. Like I said, there are a ton of subclasses for this, so we're going to run through them really, really fast. But before we do that, we're going to talk a little bit more about the overall Cleric class, because kind of like Bard, it's really sort of hard to pigeonhole them into their normal roles. The Cleric class as a whole is a phenomenal class, no matter which role you try and get it to fill. You can have them be some serious, serious damage dealers. They are amazing control casters. They are amazing support and utility casters. You can really get them to do whatever you want. So I don't really have those sort of names attached to any of these subclasses, because it kind of doesn't do it justice then, because it's sort of a cop-out of being okay, well, this is just what the class as a whole is, because the class as a whole is so versatile. The subclasses are kind of broken up based on their level 8, I believe, feature. I believe it's level 8. Yep. Their level 8 feature, and whether or not they are a core martial subclass or a core spellcasting subclass, because each one of them gets one of 2 options for it, based on which one you've picked. Either you get to add damage to your cantrips, or you get to add damage to your melee weapon attacks. Or I think it might just be weapon attacks. Not the point. So either you are using a weapon or you're using spellcasting, and that is really the through thread here, and really the only thing that pushes them one direction or another on that one. But otherwise, they are their own little flavor, because they are representative of each of the gods of the multiverse. So there's domains that encompass sort of all of them, and there's plenty of them that have not been explored at this point, obviously, because there's a lot of gods. I don't know if you guys have read the appendix in the Player's Handbook, but there's a lot of gods back there. If you haven't, definitely recommend taking a look at it, because you never know. Maybe there's something in there that you just want to kind of grab and pull and take a look at. So anyway, diving into all these divine domains, let's go from the top to the bottom. We start with the Arcana domain. This is your Arcane Scholar. That's kind of it. They are all about knowledge, specifically arcane knowledge, and using that and trying to work that in. They are almost like an abjuration wizard in a way, because they do lean into that protection side a little bit more, but they get access to wizard spells by the end of it, which is pretty cool as well. Next up is the Death domain. This is the Deathbringer Cleric. This one is really focused on dealing extra damage, specifically necrotic damage a lot of the time, and a lot of necromancy based spells. Technically, it is an option in the DMG for evil characters, but it has since sort of grown past that and been embraced by the community as a whole, sort of like the Oathbreaker Paladin has. It's not really used exclusively for evil NPCs in any way anymore, or evil characters for that matter. It is a common one for them, but it is definitely not. You're not pigeonholed into that if that's what you decide to go with. You can easily be a Death Domain Cleric and not be evil. Next up is the Forge Domain Cleric. The way I have this one described in my notes is the fiery tank, because I don't really know how else to describe it. They are probably the tankiest of all of them, because their whole shtick is like being in heavy armor and being able to kind of enchant that armor even just a little bit at the end of rests and stuff like that. They also gain resistance and eventually immunity to fire damage. So it just kind of makes sense that they are the fiery tank of the crew. They also do get resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical weapon or non-magical attacks when they are wearing heavy armor by the end of their subclass progression, which is pretty dang cool. Forward from there is the Grave Domain Cleric, which you might be saying, didn't we just talk about a deathly cleric? Yes, we did. The difference is Grave Domain Clerics are often a little bit more neutral and are more like guides to the afterlife as opposed to the ones sending them there. If you watch Critical Role, Caduceus Clay, Grave Domain Cleric, phenomenal character. Not really the point, but he's my favorite CR character across the board. So I am partial to him. After Grave Domain Clerics are the Knowledge Domain Clerics, which, again, you might be saying, isn't that kind of like the same thing as the Arcana? And you'd be kind of right. They are still scholars, but these guys are more like heady as opposed to like magical. They are more about like actually developing knowledge, actually interacting with knowledge, as opposed to studying like magical knowledge specifically. After that is the Life Domain Cleric. This is your cut and dry healer subclass for healing for the cleric as a whole. So it is the healer of the healers. All of their features really sort of lean into giving extra hit points back, or gaining extra hit points, or healing additional creatures or something like that. So they are really the ones that sort of like lean into that one a lot more. After Life is Light, which I have written down literally just the word radiant, because they are more often than not, quite literally, beacons of light, like shining beacons of light throughout their travels. A lot of their stuff interacts with light in a specific way, and they do a lot of radiant based things. And most of their gods are based on like radiance and stuff like that. Following Light is the Nature Domain Cleric. I've written down old gods because they are, in lore at least, kind of like the oldest gods, the ones that like obviously based nature originally, and these clerics follow those gods. So these guys are the ones that begin to border on like, oh god, I did it again. Begin to border on your druid and ranger side of everything, which means that they are. I don't know why I did that. There we go. Which means that they are obviously focused outside of cities more and more in the natural world. So they talk to plants and animals, stuff like that. They're a really cool subclass that I don't really see represented a whole lot, and I would actually very much like to see more nature clerics in the world. Moving on from nature, we have order domain clerics, which are quite literally, in this case, kind of like the judge of everything. Which sounds crazy, right? Like, that sounds like a weird thing to do. But their whole sort of shtick is that they, like, command rooms that they walk into, and they lay down the law, essentially. Like, they have a feature that is literally called Embodiment of Law. Next up, after the Order Domain Cleric, is the Peace Domain Cleric, which I think is one of... in spite of the fact that a lot of people know it's very good, it is severely underrated because it came out at the same time as the Twilight Domain Cleric, which we will get to in a second. But the Peace Domain Cleric is obviously the pacifist. They are they are so good at being so versatile and not necessarily dealing damage, though they do have access to the full cleric list, obviously, so they can just wreck some face if they need to. I don't know what words I was trying to get to there, but it didn't start with an S. but they have a lot of different sort of like protective spells. They have things that sort of like connect the party members, so they are pretty cool. I've played 2 different Peace Domain Clerics, and I have loved each of them. Next up is the Tempest Domain Cleric. They are essentially just like violence and power, like rammed into a little cleric body. They are a lot of fun. They are all about damage output, destroying things. Destructive Wrath is literally their channel divinity title, and ultimately, eventually, they gain a flying speed equal to their walking speed when they're not underground, because they gain something called Stormborn. Like, they are all about just like, think Thor, essentially. That is the vibe that you're going for. After Tempest Domain is the Trickery Domain. These are all about disruption. Obviously, they are the trickstery kind of ones. Again, CR fans. Jester's a Trickster Domain Cleric, and you see exactly what she gets up to with that. They are all about sowing disruption and sort of subverting the expectation of what might be happening in the real world as opposed to what is actually going on around them. Following the Trickery Domain Cleric is the Twilight Domain Cleric, which for me came out of nowhere, and it is honestly probably one of, if not the absolute best in terms of like power cleric domains out there. They have so much going for them. Right away at first level, they get 300 feet of dark vision. By 6th level, if they're in dim light, they can fly. Their Twilight Sanctuary Channel Divinity kind of vibes with like a Peace Domain Cleric sort of thing. They are so versatile and they are so good. If you have not read this one, you should read it, because it is honestly so good. And finally, after Twilight Domain, we come to the War Domain Cleric, and this one does exactly what it says it does in the title. These are the clerics of the gods of war. They are your war priests. They are the ones who are going to be out there on the front lines next to your Forge Clerics. The Forge Cleric and the War Cleric are kind of like your 2 heavy frontliners. There are a couple of other ones that are heavy-ish, but these 2 are the ones that are really going to be out there and just like smashing some heads together. To the point where the top level feature for your War Domain Cleric is called Avatar of Battle, where you gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical weapons, similar to the Forge Domain thing. This one, again, does exactly what it says it does. And that is the end of our Cleric subclass list. Again, there's a whole lot of them. I've said again so many times in the last 10 minutes. But that is everything that I have for you guys today. If it isn't obvious, I really like the Cleric class. Again, I think it's again. I think that it is super versatile, and I think more people should play it. There's this weird stigma around playing the healer or something, and Clerics, honestly, should not be pigeonholed into being healers, because they are one of the more versatile classes, and their spell list is stacked up. You should definitely take a look at it if you have sort of pushed it off because you think that it's just going to be a healer. They're not just healers. They are an all-around package. A party full of Clerics would honestly have a lot better time at a lot of things than like a party full of rogues, maybe, or something like that. So check out Cleric if you haven't checked out Cleric yet. But that is everything I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in and for making me part of your morning routine. I really do appreciate it. Like, subscribe, etc., whatever. Follow along so that you guys don't miss an episode and you can keep me in your morning routine. I really do appreciate it. And thank you so much to all of my subscribers. You guys are the ones that are really making this show possible. Subscribers. To my patrons, you guys are the ones who are really making this show possible. Subscribers, I love you too. But patrons, you guys are the ones that are really helping me make this a reality every single day. So I very much appreciate you. If you are able to, the link to my Patreon is in the description of this video. I would very much appreciate your support, but I am happy to make it for the masses, just for my love of D&D. Anyway, thank you guys once again so very much. And until next time, keep on rolling.